Hello and welcome to my Baldur's Gate 3 build video. Today I'll be showing you my Arcane Trickster build. So the idea behind this build was to make the rather lackluster base Arcane Trickster into a more fun and useful class. So let's get into the character creation and ability scores. So for the character, you can choose any really race you wish. You could go if you want to fit the theming of being schemy, agile, and nimble, like elf, half elf, gnome, or a halfling. Or in this case, I went for Astarion because I thought that he really fits the Arcane Trickster character really well. So for the ability scores, I decided to go to 17 dexterity, 16 intelligence, 14 constitution, 10 wisdom, though the last two scores you can put into charisma or in wisdom. That's your personal preference. It doesn't really all that matter. Then you could build for your first level as a rogue and then go for the first 5 levels as a rogue to stay in the theme. Or you can go what I did and I went first level up to 5 as a ranger. Reason being, I wanted to get extra attack, so I went first level ranger. Favorite enemy here, it doesn't really matter what you go. You can pick anything of choice. Ranger Knight is not really useful since you will be not using heavy armor at all. I chose Bounty Hunter. For Natural Explorer, I would suggest Fire or Poison, these two being the two most common sort of damage types in the game. So I went here with Fire. Alright, let's get into the rest of the levels for the Arcane Trickster. So at level 2, we'll be picking our first two spells, which will be Hunter's Mark and Long Strider. Hunter's Mark being an extra source of damage, and Long Strider being one of the best utility spells in the game, and on top of that, it doesn't consume a spell slot. For fighting style, we'll be choosing Archery. On level 3, we will be choosing a spell, which is Enhanced Leap. You can choose any of these others, I just like this one the most. Our subclass will be Gloomstalker. It gives you Dread Ambusher, so extra attack in the first round of combat unless you're surprised, and it has really good synergy with the Rogue type class. On our fourth level, we'll be choosing our first feat, which will be ability improvement and +2 dexterity. Also in Act 1, you should get Auntie's Hair, which will take your dexterity up to 20. So you want 20 dexterity to get the highest chance at hitting your targets. On level 5, this will be our last ranger level, mainly because we just wanted the extra attack here, and on top of it we get Misty Step. For our spells, we'll be choosing Silence. It fits the theme of our character, as it is an illusion spell, since we will be focusing on illusion and enchantment spells. So this is the level now where we will be multiclassing. We'll be doing Rogue here. You can change abilities, you don't need to though. On our 7th level, we are level 2 and we can't really choose anything here, so we'll just move on. Alright, at our level 8, we finally get to choose our subclass, which will be Arcane Trickster. For your cantrips, you want to choose Friends if you already don't have, like I already have it on Astarion, as he is a high elf and he can choose a cantrip on character creation. So I would suggest taking Friends and Light, but in this case I'll go for Friends and Firebolt. Firebolt being useful since you can light up surfaces. For our other two spells, we will choose Tasha's Famous Laughter and Sleep, both being enchantment spells which we will utilize heavily. Expanded, we want to choose Shield, as it is one of the best level 1 spells in the game. At level 9, we will be taking our third multi-class, which will be the Wizard. Reason being, this will allow us to learn spells from scrolls, namely 3rd and 4th level spells, as from our level ups you will see we only get access to 1st and 2nd. So this will allow us to learn some crucial 3rd and 4th level spells. So for 1st level Wizard, your cantrips you can choose whatever you wish, it doesn't really matter all that much. Spells that you can learn here is I would suggest Magic Missile for sure, and then the rest you can just pick whatever, doesn't really matter. Prepared spells I will show you at level 12, as I already have some of the 3rd and 4th level spells, although I'm missing hypnotic patterns from level 3. So I will show you all of them later. Level 2 Wizard will be picking Divination. It gives you Portent Dice, which is very fitting for this. As you're Arcane Trickster, you kind of want the dice to roll in your favor, and maybe enemies' misfortune. For spells, again, just pick whatever. Level 11, we're gonna pick 2 spells. Now here, if you don't learn them, I already know these spells on this character, so I don't have them here. But I will highly suggest you learn Mirror Image and Blur. So I will pick 2 random ones for this example. And then on level 12, you can pick another 2 spells. Those other 2 would be Hold Person and Visibility. Again, I already know them, so I don't have them here, so I will just pick random ones. Your cantrip doesn't really matter here. Spells, I will show you right now, actually. So for your spells, level 1, you kind of have all of them that you need, so we'll go from top down. Great Invisibility is very important. Confusion. You could take Fear. I would take Hypnotic Pattern over Fear, probably. Level 2, we'll be pretty much taking all of the ones that are fitting, so Hold Person, Mirror Image, Invisibility, and Blur. So again, I would probably take Hypnotic Pattern over Fear. And for our last feat, we'll be picking probably the most important feat here is the Sharpshooter. We'll be utilizing this heavily now because we'll be fighting from visibility a lot and we'll be getting advantage on all of our attacks pretty much. Right, now let's get into the equipment. I also have some examples of equipment here that you can use either pre-Act 3. Sort of this, what Astarion has equipped now is what is his like ultimate endgame sort of set. So let's go with Helmet. Helmet of Arcane Acuity, an amazing Act 2 item that whenever you deal damage with a weapon attack, you gain Arcane Acuity for 2 turns. So usually if you have extra attack, you can get 4 stacks per turn. Or if you have somehow additional attack in the first turn, like with the Ambush, you can get 6 if all 3 hit. Now there is an interesting mechanic with it that when out of many targets hits, let's say 4 targets, it gives you a stack per hit. So a single attack with arrow of many targets can give you a total of 8 stacks of Arcane Acuity, which is really strong. That means in the first turn of combat, you can do 2 attacks plus the Ambusher and you should have 10 stacks, making your spells really powerful. In that first turn, if for example, in the first turn you wanna hold person somebody, it's almost impossible that they save unless they get a nat 20. For the cloak, I went with Nymph Cloak. Reason being, you get a single use of a dominate person. There are 2 of these cloaks in the game, so you can get 2 of them if you carry them on you. Just so you don't need to, for example, carry scrolls. You could carry around a few scrolls with dominate person and hold monster. I just use this because it's a sort of free one-time, once per long rest dominate person. The alternative is the Cloak of Cunning Brew, which I would use until I get the Nymph Cloak, which gives you, when the wearer disengages, they also create a foggy cloud with 2-meter radius that lasts for 1 turn. It's okay, there are better cloaks like Cloak of Protection, but you could use this or Cloak of Protection itself. For the armor, I went with a relatively, you could argue, weak, weird choice, which is the Spiral Silk armor. You gain +1 bonus to stealth checks and advantage on Constitution saving throw checks. I prefer this over all of the others because it gives you the advantage on Constitution saving throws. That also means you should have advantage on Concentration saving throws. You get this relatively early in the game. In Act 1, this is Mintara's armor, and I prefer this over the others. You could instead use the Penumbral armor you get in Act 2, while Obscure the wearer gains +3 bonus to stealth checks, but it gives you a +3 bonus only when you're obscured, and looks-wise, I prefer the Spiral Silk armor. You can, in Act 3, get the Elegant Standard Leather, which gives you advantage on stealth checks and +2 initiative. But we will get advantage from stealth checks from a different piece of equipment, and also I prefer the armor. Although this is not bad armor at all, you can use this instead if you want to use a different weapon. For gloves, we're going with Legacy of the Masters. Gain +2 to attack and damage rolls with weapons and +1 strength saving throws. I tried with some other gloves and I decided that I kind of want the highest chance of hitting my target so I can stack those arcane acuity stacks. So I went with this. This gives you a really nice boost to your damage and also damage, attacks and damage. And you, for alternatives, could use, for example, in the early game, you'd probably use either gloves of archery or gloves of power. If you're a gnome or a halfling, probably if you're a gnome, I would suggest these instead. Granted to +2 dexterity or +1 as halfling as dwarves. Probably as gnomes, I would take these. That would take, they can take your max dexterity to 24, which I think is maybe even better. Or it even does the same thing as Legacy Master. I'm not exactly certain it is, but I'll probably use nimble finger gloves. And also +1 sleight of hand can be useful. The active alternatives you can do is Stalker's Gloves, gain +1 to bonus to initiative rolls, and when your sneak attacks deal additional 1d4 force damage. These you could argue are better, but the issue with them that I don't like, I found, is that 1d4 force damage actually rolls the stealth check for greater invisibility again. So it rolls once for attack and second time for the 1d4 force damage. The Crater Flesh gloves, I believe, do the same thing. Whenever you score a crit hit, do additional 1d6 force damage, and I believe you roll twice per attack if you score a crit. So I ended up going for, again, Legacy of the Masters. For boots, we are going with Boots of Striding. You could argue there are better options. I like these with this because if I go invisible, I get momentum and I can't slip or be moved against my will, which allows me to attack from one spot, go invisible, and move quite a distance, and then to prepare for the second turn to attack from a different spot while invisible. These boots are also, you find them relatively early in the game. I believe these boots are also worn by Mintara. Let's go to our amulets. We are using currently Spell Savant Amulet. It just grants you an additional level 2 spell slot, so additional invisibility, additional blur, additional hold person. It is, as a sort of passive bonus, really nice. The alternative you could use is in Act 3 Surgeon Subjugation Amulet. You find this in Act 2 actually, which when you score a critical hit, you paralyze a humanoid, which is really powerful. Now I have two amulets here, which are the Spell Restoration Amulets. These two are really good for any spellcaster class because the Pearl of Power Amulet gives you up to 1 to 3 level spell slot, 1 restoration, and the Spellcrux Amulet restores 1 level spell slot, that is from level 1 to level 6. So with this amulet, you can get 2 level 4 spell slots. If you use Supreme Elixir of Arcane Cultivation, you get a third one, and if you use Free Cast from Illithid Powers, you get a fourth one. So you can get quite a lot of 4th level spells, even though we only technically have 1. For rings, I went with Strange Conduit Ring. This ring, while concentrating on a spell, will wear weapons attacks, deal additional 1d4 psychic damage. Psychic? I don't know. Psychic damage. Again, as a passive bonus to your damage, really good. It doesn't proc the stealth check the second time like the Stalker's gloves do, which is really nice. Alternatively, you could use the Acoustic Band. Now, for our sort of bread and butter of the build, which is the Band of the Mystic Scoundrel, which you'll find from Akabe if you beat his Wheel of Fortune, this ring does is after hitting a creature with a weapon attack, you can cast an illusion or enchantment spell as a bonus action. This is probably the most important item in this build, as it allows you to attack something twice, third time with the ambusher, and then cast a spell that is supercharged from your Arcane Acuity stacks. This is absolutely a must-have for this. Now, some alternatives or early game rings you can use instead: Shifting Corpus Ring or the Fetish of Calandran Smooth Hands. This just gives you an additional sort of spell slots of Invisibility and Blur. Until you get something better, you can use these. You can also use the Risky Ring, though again, disadvantage you same with throws, it can backfire on you, but it won't necessarily always, but it's something you can take into consideration. And of course, the Acoustic Band, you can also find this in Act 1, I believe, so you could probably just use this until you get Either Strangely Conduit, you could replace it or maybe not, but Band of the Mystic Scoundrel is a must-have. Now our weapons. The choices here are kind of weird, and what I chose here was the Assassin's Short Sword. Now, when you look at it like this, it's kind of a lackluster weapon, only a +1, but it gives you advantage on stealth checks. The reason we're going for this is because we want a permanent advantage on stealth checks, which is going to make us failing a greater invisibility stealth check a lot harder. And because of our armor and our shield, Gloomstrand Shield, +1 stealth, we were going for stacking as much stealth as possible, because if you look here, on Act 3 we have +15 to stealth checks. So it will be really hard for us to fail a stealth check while under greater invisibility. For our ranged weapon, I chose the Deadshot. Number you need to roll a critical hit is reduced by 1. Self-explanatory. Wielder doubles their proficiency bonus when rolling ranged attacks with this weapon. Again, just an amazing bow, great accuracy, and the one less number for critical hit is just a great bonus on top of it. For the early game, you could use Herald or the other Titan String Bow or Colossal Slayer. I forget what is the other crossbow that gives you reeling. Overall, a pretty good debuff crossbow. Though if you're Arcane Trickster, you kind of want a bow and arrow, right? So that's right. You can also use Bow the Banshee. Really nice bow, because you can inflict frightened on quite a few targets with that. And because you are a spellcaster, the frighten effect actually uses your spellcasting modifier for ability checks. I noticed that also works, for example, with some of the elite abilities, but you can also use Least Suspected. While Obscured, you gain a 1d4 bonus to range weapon attacks. It's okay, I'll probably stick with Bow the Banshee or Herald until I get the Deadshot. I have tried using the Gontermel, I guess it's pronounced. It can work, but I found that the hit chance is actually lower with this since it doesn't have the keen attack, right? Celestial Haste is nice, but I want to make sure that I hit my targets again so that I can get those stacks of Arcane Acuity. So Deadshot was the final choice. Alright, so that is the build and the equipment. For potions, you probably want to stack on a potion of invisibility in case they have like a couple of wizards who can counterspell you. Bloodlust Elixir, amazing, just an extra action, an extra attack, and very important, arrow many targets. Coatings and poisons, you can just pick really whichever ones you like. All of Combustion is really powerful if you manage to clump the enemies up with, for example, the black hole from the Elite Powers. And important also is to get Supreme Elixir of Arcane Cultivation. It just gives you additional 4th level spell slot in a long rest. Alright, so here we are at the good old Flaming Fist barracks, so I can show you what you can expect from this build. Now, I did bring a couple of allies here to serve us as punching bags because, as you know, or as you will learn, if you use invisibility in your first turn and then at the beginning of your second turn, if you are still invisible and your enemies didn't find you, you will actually exit combat mode and the NPCs will go back to their usual routines. So, for the purposes of having a proper quote-unquote battle showcase, I brought punching bags. So for the beginning, or before the battle, I use a coating on my weapon, which generally is a good idea to do. Also, we have a wizard here. She's going to be our first target because wizards are annoying and you want to get rid of them so that they can't counterspell you. I will show you now the effect the Arcane Acuity and Arrow Many Targets have on each other. So we will target the wizard and let's see how many charges I get. So we crit, but we got 4 hits. So we have 8 charges of Arcane Acuity. Now if I try to hold person somebody, we have pretty much guaranteed chance of doing it on everybody except somebody like Cleric or a Druid who naturally have high wisdom, and then wizards have a bit of a higher save as well from their proficiency. But for this occasion we will just use Great Invisibility after we kill the wizard because we don't want her to cause us to fail. Alright, so now that's done. We got our bonus action from the Elixir of Bloodlust. And now, since we're visible, I can also show you the stealth rolls that we will get after attacking. If you open here and we check, difficulty class 15, first one is always 15, and then they go up, I believe, by 2. So we rolled a 34, because we have advantage, we have proficiencies, stealthy from armor, stealth modifier from shield, etc. Now we can use our extra action to finish this fist off, hopefully. So yeah, there you go. Now, what I would do here is I would move somewhere else from our original position, which will cause the AI either to move in here and try to find us and attack our allies. Over the course of the next turn, I would continue picking enemies off, or if I think I'm safe enough from enemy focus, I would use one of the disabling/enchanting spells to hold person or Tasha Sana's laughter at the enemies. So yeah, that's the build. I hope you enjoyed it. This is my first video ever, pretty much. So I hope you will leave some comments down below about any suggestions or even questions you have about the game. I would like to create more of these videos because I have a bunch more ideas for builds that I would like to test out and share. So yeah, I hope you enjoy and have a good one.